Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And to our Free Speech TV viewers, Bernie, are you there with us?
I am right here, Tom. How are you?
Oh, that's great. I am fine. I'm doing the show from home today here. That little surgery I told you that I was going to have turned into something popped, and I was 4 days in the emergency room, and it's now 3 weeks on what should have been just a quick week, and hopefully it'll be over tomorrow. I'm back to the hospital to get this wrapped up, I hope. But anyway, you didn't want to...
On behalf of all of your listeners, Tom, we wish you the quickest recovery. You do a great job, and we need you back at full strength.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you. Thank you for your kind thoughts. Let's grab a question from a Free Speech TV viewer here, and then when we come back, you can give us your thoughts and rants on the day. Is that all right with you?
That's fine.
All right. Let's see here. Lee in Walden, Michigan. Hey, Lee, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Okay. I've got a question here. When it's obvious that voter election laws have been changed to suppress voter turnout in democratically leaning areas, it seems like the Attorney General's office could require and enforce election rules that have been historically acceptable in the past. I just wonder what he'd have to say about that.
Well, I agree with you. I think I talked to the Attorney General's office many months ago, and I think what Lee is talking about, so that everybody understands, is just the outrageous decisions being made in Republican states all over this country, and everybody knows what they're trying to do. This has nothing to do with voter fraud. Voter fraud, fortunately, in this country is not a serious issue. When it occurs, people should be punished very seriously and heavily for abrogating democratic traditions. But what is going on in state after state with Republican governors and legislatures is an effort to suppress the vote from people who will not vote for Republicans. So you're making it more difficult for low-income people who don't have driver's licenses, for elderly people who don't drive, to get to the polls. And this is just a real attack on what democracy in this country is supposed to be about. My hope is that the Attorney General will be absolutely as vigorous as he can possibly be in taking on those states who are just trying to deny people their basic democratic rights.
Ray in Leavenworth, Washington, watching on Free Speech TV on Dish Network. What's up, Ray? You're on the air with Senator Sanders. We have 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I just had a comment about nobody ever brings up the housing issue, and housing, to me, what I've at least heard has what caused this thing, and the banks and all that stuff. And nobody ever talks about the banks and what's going on with the housing and anything. So I was...
Well, Ray, in all due respect, some of us do talk about the banks, because I think unless we get a handle on Wall Street, unless we understand that a half a dozen banks have assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of this country, $9 trillion, that to a significant degree the business model, the way these guys function, is based on fraud and illegal actions, that unless we get a handle on that and demand that banks start investing in the productive economy and those businesses which produce real products and create real services, rather than continue to live as an island unto themselves with incredibly complicated financial transactions, unless we deal with that, we're not going to rebuild the middle class of this country.
It's Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early, because I've got to get back to the hospital tomorrow, but hopefully that'll be the end of that. Senator Bernie Sanders, kind enough to be with us our third hour today. We'll be back with your calls for Senator Bernie Sanders. So check out his website, sanders.senate.gov, right after this.
They say the next big thing is here, that the revolution's near. But to me it seems quite clear that it's all just a little bit of history repeating.
Welcome back. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our special Brunch with Bernie, a day early, because I'm not going to be around tomorrow. I've got to get back to the hospital and get all these tubes taken out of me. But Senator Sanders is on the line here with us and taking your calls. And Bernie, before we pick up any calls, usually you like to give us an overview of what's going on in your world, in the Senate, and in the country and things. You got a riff for us here.
Yeah, I think the major issue, at least one of the major issues that people have got to be paying keen attention to, is this issue of the fiscal cliff and this issue of deficit reduction. To my mind, what is going on right now is an effort led by billionaires like Pete Peterson and others to move forward toward deficit reduction and balancing the budget on the backs of the elderly, the children, the sick, and the poor. And I think certainly the entire Republican Party is going to be in on that, and you have a number of Democrats who will also be involved in that. And we've got to do everything we can to oppose that. Tom, in my view, what we can never forget is that when Bill Clinton left office in January 2001, this country was running a $236 billion surplus. And the economists were projecting that surplus to grow every single year. And we are in a deficit situation right now because some of these loudest so-called deficit hawks are people, George W. Bush and his friends, who took us into 2 wars, and they refused to pay for those wars. They gave huge tax breaks to the richest people in this country, and they refused to offset it. They passed a Medicare Part D prescription drug program, which was much more costly than it should have been, because they refused to have the government negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry. And then, of course, as a result of the Wall Street-caused recession, revenues compared to GDP are the lowest that they have been in 60 years. Businesses go under, workers lose their jobs, less tax revenue comes in to the federal government. And what these guys, the so-called deficit hawks, are now saying is that, yeah, well, maybe we caused a deficit with unpaid wars and tax breaks and the Medicare Part D program. But you know what? Be that as it may, we've got to address the $1 trillion deficit we have now and the $16 trillion national debt. And the way we think we should do it, we billionaires, we Wall Street guys, we think what we've got to do is cut Social Security, despite the fact that Social Security hasn't contributed a nickel to the deficit. We've got to cut Medicare or do away with it as it currently exists, make it into a voucher program, force the elderly to pick up a lot more of the health care burdens, make devastating cuts to Medicaid, despite the fact we have 50 million people who have no health insurance right now, and they're going to cut kids off of health insurance, working families off health insurance. And by the way, we're so concerned about the deficit and the national debt that, we'll try to get a few more tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires and large corporations. So there's a scam that's going on right now, and that is under the guise of trying to deal with what is a serious problem, deficit, the need to deal with the deficit. What you're going to see is a far-flung attack, a major, major attack on the elderly people, on the sick, on the children, on the poor, when in fact we do know that there are ways that you can deal with a deficit that is responsible and that is fair. And that is, you got to say to the billionaires of this country and the wealthiest people in this country are doing phenomenally well. And we have to understand that we live in a time when the distribution of wealth and income is at a level we have not seen since the 1920s and worse than any other country on earth. That you got to say to the millionaires and billionaires and large corporations, you know what? We can't just have austerity for the middle class and the working class of this country. Those people have already been hit tremendously hard. You on top are going to have to deal with some austerity. We're going to have to ask the wealthy and the large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. We're going to have to take a hard look at military spending. So, and understand that we've tripled military spending since 1997. So I think, Tom, what you're going to see now, and it's really quite amazing, the collusion between the corporate media, Wall Street billionaires, politicians in Congress saying, oh, yes, we've suddenly woken up after we forgot to pay for 2 wars, which will cost us $3 trillion. We're going to have to cut Social Security. And after giving tax breaks to billionaires, we're going to have to cut Medicare and Medicaid. And we're going to have to fight that effort through grassroots organizing as effectively as we can.
Yeah, there you go. Dave, are you ready to pick up calls?
Absolutely.
Okay, Dave in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, good afternoon. How are you doing today, you guys?
Good.
Tom, I hope you feel better, and I hope you get well. Bernie, thanks for taking my call. My question is in regards to, as a fellow progressive, I mean, my vote this year is not going to Barack Obama. It's going to Dr. Jill Stein. My phone call to you, Bernie, is what are your opinions on Dr. Jill Stein and the Green Party, and as a fellow progressive, it's a shame to me, the fact you haven't endorsed them publicly. Is there any specific reason?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a very strong reason. Dave, I am the longest-serving independent in the history of the United States of America. I've defeated Democrats. I've defeated Republicans. I think where we are right now is the Republican Party has moved from a right-center party to a right-wing extremist party. I think the Democratic Party has moved from a left-center party to what I would call a centrist party, some really great people, some pretty conservative people. But I think in the real world that we are living in right now, and I know that many people, including myself, are disappointed that Barack Obama has not done more to take on big money interest, to take on the Republicans. I fully appreciate that and share those concerns. But, Dave, to my mind, the task of this moment is to make sure that Mitt Romney is not elected president of the United States, that we do not have a Republican Senate, and continue to have a Republican House, all of which is quite possible. For a variety of reasons, I think, without going into all of the details right now, if you end up with a Romney and a Republican Congress, it is unimaginable the kind of devastation that they're going to do to the working families of this country. That's why I'm supporting Obama for re-election, and why I think we have got to, at the same time, grow a strong progressive grassroots movement.
Yeah, not to mention what they could do to the Supreme Court. All right. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
It's Brunch with Bernie, a day early. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. Check out sanders.senate.gov. Back with your calls for Bernie right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early. Senator Bernie Sanders here taking your calls. And ready to go, Bernie?
Let's do it.
Okay, Don in San Diego, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, I appreciate you having me on. Senator Sanders, I salute you. You are a hero to many of us in America, and I only wish I lived in your state so I could vote for you.
Thanks very much, Don.
I'd like to say a couple things. I think what's happening is the Republicans are focusing on the people least able to defend themselves by going over and trying to get money from Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And as I've seen a couple charts, that entire segment of our budget is only 6%, whereas the military is 60%. So, and that doesn't include all the black programs. So, to me, that's ridiculous. Number two, nuclear storage. Everybody's talking again about Yucca Mountain. I personally think it was built for another reason, and the geology is not good for nuclear storage, and I think a much more cost-effective way would be to utilize the military-controlled areas in the Southwest. There are huge tracts of land, and even, this sounds funny, Area 51, since they've had nuclear blasts there in the past.
Don, pardon my interrupting you, but do you have a question for Bernie?
Yeah, I'd like to find out if he thinks there's any chance to remove offshore tax havens for the ultra-rich.
Well, that's a good question, Don. Here's the view. Here's my view. When we look at the economy and we look at deficit reduction, what we have to understand is that the people on top have been extraordinarily successful winners in the economy. Tom, right now, the top 1% of this country owns 40% of the wealth. The bottom 60% owns only 2% of the wealth. The last year that we looked at income distribution, we found that in 2010 and 2009, between those 2 years, 93% of all new income went to the top 1%, and the bottom 99% of our people shared the remaining 7%. So when you talk about deficit reduction, and this is the point that I think Don was trying to make, we should understand that we are losing every single year about $100 billion in taxes because corporations and wealthy individuals are stashing, we don't know, but unbelievable sums of money. All over the world, the number is trillions of dollars. in tax havens like the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Panama, etc. So before we go about cutting Social Security and cutting Medicare and cutting Medicaid and cutting food stamps and cutting programs that the most vulnerable people in this country desperately depend upon, maybe, just maybe, we want to end these tax havens that enable people with incredible wealth to avoid paying taxes. I think that's Don's point, and I certainly agree with him. But bottom line here is a nation. You cannot, it is just immoral and it's bad economics to balance the budget on the backs of the people who are already hurting, people who are already suffering as a result of this recession, while the people on top who are doing phenomenally well laugh all the way to the bank.
Mary in Riverside, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you very much. I'd like to know when the new Obamacare goes into effect as far as low-income people becoming eligible for Medicaid, if they have an IRA account of any substance, does that disqualify them from eligibility if they're otherwise eligible?
No, I don't have the papers in front of me, but I think not. The goal of one of the important components of the Affordable Care Act is that it will extend Medicaid to some 30 million more Americans, and many of those folks will be low-income working people who today have no health insurance at all.
Emma in Sacramento, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Hi. I'm sorry. I haven't talked to anyone on the phone this way in 30 years, but I've been going nuts about this. I don't understand why there's so much reluctance to take the cap off of Social Security payments from the worker. When you get over $110,000 a year, which is going to be this year, is going up again from 106. You're not starving. You could pay a little bit more. I think that if every person who makes over $110,000 a year has to pay, just like SDI, until as long to the end of their wages, that's a little bit every month and that little bit every year to them in proportion to what they're making would go a long way to back up SSI, Social Security for people who were like myself, who started out with very, very low wages when we started working, and we're not in community property states, so we have virtually nothing. I mean, I've been working since I was 7, and I get $5,500 a month.
All right, let me just pick up on that to tell you I agree with you, and that's why I introduced legislation that does exactly that. And I'm glad you raised the issue because I think it's important that we focus on Social Security, that we understand that, A, Social Security hasn't contributed a nickel to the deficit because it is funded independently by the payroll tax, and that we understand also that with modest changes, Social Security can pay out every nickel owed to every eligible American for the next 75 years. Right now, it's 21 years. So when you hear people tonight on television tell you how Social Security is going broke, understand the Social Security has a $2.7 trillion surplus, can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 21 years. But the point that the caller made is that right now, if you make $1 million or $10 million a year, you're contributing the same exact amount into the Social Security Trust Fund as if you were making $110,000 a year. What people don't know and don't remember is that 4 years ago, a candidate for president of the United States called Barack Obama proposed that, in fact, we lift that cap and then start at not 110,000 or whatever the number was then, but at 250,000. And if you do that, Social Security will pay out every benefit for the next 75 years. I thought that was a great idea. And that is exactly the legislation that I've introduced, which has a number of co-sponsors. So I think that in terms of Social Security, which has been so enormously important for the people of this country, Tom, sometimes I fear that people just take Social Security for granted, don't know that before Social Security, half of the elderly people in this country lived in poverty. Today that number is 10%. don't know that Social Security is providing disability benefits to millions of Americans, allowing them to live in dignity, protecting widows and orphans who lose the breadwinner in the family. So I think your caller has provided exactly the right solution to making sure Social Security will be solvent for the next 75 years.
Amen, brother. Michael in San Diego, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Mr. Hartman. Hey, Senator Sanders. Pleasure to be able to speak to both of you. Tom, I hope you get better, man. We need you. First off, my question for you, Tom, is Goosellini a play on Mussolini?
Yeah, we had a crazy goose in our backyard. In fact, the caller just dropped, so I'll just leave it at that. When we lived on the river, we had a crazy goose that tried to lock us in the house. Steve in North Troy, Vermont, you're on the air with Senator Sanders, with your senator, with Bernie.
Hey, Bernie, how are you?
Good, Steve. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm not sure if you know, but they just changed the allowable coliform levels in Vermont on the beaches and lakes from 77 to 235. And I know you're a champion of the family farms, Bernie, and we all are. But it's the factory farms that are killing us up here, and I've seen a marked decline in this. Is there any way we can get the EPA to lower that, or at least get the state of Vermont to put it back, or try and clean up these factory farms?
Well, it's funny you mention that, Steve, because I just left the company of Lisa Jackson, who is the administrator of the EPA. And during the course of the day, we had the administrator sitting down with people in the agricultural committee to go over issues just like that. So obviously in Vermont, we are, virtually all of us are strong supporters of family farmers. And we're also strong supporters of the environment. So we will see what we can do to work those things out.
Okay. Jim in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're on the air with Bernie. We got a minute to the break.
Oh, thank you for taking my call, and thanks to both of you for being who you are and what you're doing. My question is regarding the gold standard that we used to have in this country that made it great. In 1971, Nixon did away with it. So can we ever get back to it again? I know the rich people don't want to do it because they got to keep getting rich.
Let's just let Bernie answer the question here. We just have a few seconds.
Well, the answer is I don't know, Jim. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm not in favor of going back to the gold standard. I am very strongly in favor of the Federal Reserve playing the role that it should be playing, and that is to protect the interest of small business and working families and not just the folks on Wall Street. And the whole issue of the Fed is something we can talk, but I am not a fan of going back to the gold standard.
Okay. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. I think of him as America's senator, although the good citizens of Vermont know he's theirs. His website, sanders.senate.gov. We'll be back with more of your questions for Bernie in our Thursday afternoon edition of Brunch with Bernie, right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And sanders.senate.gov is Bernie's website. Ours is thomhartmann.com. You can drop in there. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get into the chat room today, but I will soon. Okay, welcome back. Jeff in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Bernie.
Hi, Bernie. How you doing?
Good.
I love what both of you guys are doing. My question for you is, I'm a disabled American veteran. I fought in the Vietnam War, and I was wondering, it's very sketchy, at least to me, with all these veterans. Now my veterans organization happens to be Disabled American Veterans, but do they plan to cut benefits away from us as well?
Jeff, I am very glad you asked that question. The answer is yes. One of the ways our Republican friends and some Democrats are thinking of cutting Social Security, I don't know that they've reached a conclusion as to how exactly they want to go forward, but one of the concepts that's out there is called the chained CPI. Now, nobody in America outside of the Washington Beltway understands what that is. But what it is a different way to configure COLAs, cost of living adjustments, for seniors and for those people who receive VA benefits. and a lot of VA benefits that are determined on how you figure out what inflation is and what kind of COLA seniors and vets receive. If you make a change in that formulation and you lower benefits, what it will mean for seniors is if you're 65 now, by the time you're 75, you'll be getting $500 a year less, and when you're 85, it'll be over $1,000 a year less. So to answer Jeff's question, if they move toward this concept of a chain CPI, reconfiguring how they determine what cost of living adjustments are, it will hurt veterans. And it is something that veterans have got to stand up and raise hell about.
Glennis in Cleveland, Georgia, watching us on Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Mr. Sanders, thank you so much. My husband and I may live in Georgia, but we feel like you're one of the few voices in Congress that stands for us. My question is, his income with his disability, we make a little over $9,000 a year. And God forbid if Romney gets in office and he's going to charge us $6,000 to keep my husband's Medicare, what are people like us supposed to do?
Thanks very much for that call. And let me be as clear as I can be. I'm Vermont senator, and I get around the country and I talk to a lot of people. And sometimes people ask me, working people, lower income people ask me, they say, don't these people understand that if they do this or they do that, don't they know what it's going to mean to my life? And the answer that I have got to give you is people like Romney and Paul Ryan and these others, these are no dummies. They do understand. They don't care. They don't care. They see their job, and they've come up with an incredible ideology. They believe their job ultimately is to represent the wealthiest people in this country. It should impress everybody that 4 days after Paul Ryan was given the vice presidential nomination by Romney, that he went to visit Sheldon Adelson, who is worth some $20+ billion, who has pledged to contribute at least $100 million into the campaign. Let's get back to that question, Tom, at the end of this break, because the caller has asked something very important.
Great. Okay, we'll do it. Senator Bernie Sanders with us in our Brunch with Bernie hour. We'll be right back with more calls.
From the war against disorder, from the sirens night and day, from the fires of the homeless, from the ashes of the gay, democracy is coming to the USA.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, our special Brunch with Bernie Thursday edition with Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. Bernie, during our non-commercial break, we had a caller with a question. You want to paraphrase that question?
The caller from Georgia, basically said that her family is a low-income family. And what she worries is that if Romney becomes president, what's going to happen to Medicare? And I will tell you what will happen to Medicare. There is no debate about this. They are going to end Medicare as we currently know it, as it has always existed, and convert it into what is called a voucher program. And what that means is they're going to say to the seniors of this country, here is a check for some $8,000, I believe is the number that they're talking about. And with that check, you go out and you get the best private insurance that you can, best policy that you can. Now, the problem is, they're also going to repeal the Affordable Care Act and our effort to make sure that people with pre-existing conditions are not discriminated against. And B, what they're going to say is, okay, you're 67, you're 68 years of age, and you've been diagnosed with cancer or serious heart disease. Now, Tom, you tell me, and I want the listeners to think about this. If you go into an insurance company and you got a check for $8,000, and you say, oh, yes, I am dealing with cancer, I'm dealing with a serious heart disease, and yes, this is going to cost you, the insurance company, tens of thousands of dollars to treat me, because that's the reality of my medical condition. And here is my check for $8,000. What are you going to give me? Well, what do you think that insurance company is going to say?
They're going to show you the door.
They're going to show you the door. Why would they lose money on you a week after they took that account?
Yeah.
So then you're left with this check for $8,000, I don't know what you do. The caller asks, what happens to us? I don't know what happens to you. I think on one hand, we lose 45,000 people a year in the United States of America because they don't get health care when they need. And I'm sure that if this Romney concept or Ryan concept of a voucherized Medicare plan goes into effect, we're going to start losing a heck of a lot more seniors who could and should be treated, but are simply not going to have the money to do that. So it is a cruel and disastrous idea, and these guys do know what they're doing. They're working for the insurance companies. They're working for the drug companies. They're working for the wealthiest people in this country, and they are turning their back completely on working families and lower-income people and middle-class people. And that's the reality, and that's, to a large degree, what this election is about.
Jim in St. Joseph, Missouri. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Jim?
Hello, yeah.
Hey, you're on the air.
Okay, hey, Senator Sanders. Yeah, so I had a different question, but I heard somebody call and ask about what to do with people that hide their money, like in the Cayman Islands.
Yep.
And what about passing a bill that if you do that, we can revoke your citizenship? So, if you like the Cayman Islands so much, you can just live there. That would, one, probably keep Mitt Romney from being eligible for president, which would be fine with me. And then, two, it would, so many people that think there's too many people coming in, well, we can just start sending some people out, balance it out. So what about passing a law?
Well, those are interesting concepts, Jim. I mean, one of the things that gets me is these very, very wealthy people and these large corporations tell us how much they love the United States of America. And yet you got the heads of these large corporations who have made outsourcing into their business model. They've been very clear that in every way that they possibly can, it makes sense for them to shut down plants in the United States over a period of years, throw millions of workers out on the street to move to China, to move to Vietnam, to move to countries where workers are paid very, very low wages. That's how much they love America and how much they respect the people who made their corporations great. And the second thing, the second way that they show us how much they love this country is they will do anything and everything they can to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. And one of the ways they do it, as Jim just mentioned, is to put, and we don't know how much, we really don't know. There have been studies out there that from an international perspective, not just the United States, we're talking about trillions of dollars being hidden in these tax havens offshore. And I think clearly Jim is right. We have got to be very, very aggressive about saying to these guys who are millionaires and billionaires that I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay your fair share of taxes because we're not going to balance the budget on the elderly and the children and those people who are really, really hurting. So I think Jim's point is well taken.
Marie in Algebel, Colorado. We're getting up to the end of the hour here, Marie. So a real short question, please.
Go questions. Bernie, I have two. First of all, one of the reasons for a high percentage of taxes on the 1% is that after a certain point, you have plenty of money to live the high life. If you're just going to have to give the money back to the government at some point, my guess is that some CEOs, some boards might go, well, we might as well pay our employees a living wage. That's one of the reasons, and I don't hear this being discussed. And secondly, I'd love to hear your take on what you think the end game is. Why do the 1% want to destroy the rest of us?
Okay, Marie, you've asked two great questions.
And
I think that, very briefly, from a moral perspective, I think we have got to make it clear that what Marie said is exactly correct. Look, when you're worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, you're going to have enough money to do anything you want. But the truth of the matter is, and you're going to have enough money to leave your kids and your grandchildren, but the truth of the matter is there really is a limit to how much a human being needs. And to say that we are not going to pay, we millionaires, we're not going to pay anything more in taxes, even if it means the kids in this country go hungry, this is a moral issue, which I would hope the American people stand up and say, no, you can't get away with that.
Bernie, thanks so much for being with us this week.
Thank you, Tom.
It is great having you on. And remember, everybody, Sanders.senate.gov. Check it out.